Dear brothers, what's up, boys? So I had a great conversation yesterday, actually, with a guy, and we were talking about fitness and health and really kind of what people spend on various courses. And it kind of got me to thinking about how many men go to these mastermind courses, or they go to these conventions, they go to workshops, they go to these various continuing education type deals. And when they go to them, often they base it on the more expensive it is, the more valuable that course is going to be to them. And so that's the first thing that I want to discuss, is that we do a lot, or men, where we will spend a lot of money on something. And the more that we spend, the more valuable we think that it is. And that's not necessarily the truth. But what I want to get to is, let's say we go to one of these conferences. Let's say that you go, you learn a bunch, you meet some cool people, and you're like, oh, I've got all these notes and this is so cool and I can't wait to get back, and I'm really going to bolster my life or improve my business or become a better, coach in whatever thing that I do. I don't know. Whatever the thing is that you're trying to improve that you went to this event for. Inevitably, a lot of men come home, maybe for a couple of days. They, hit the ground running on what to do and maybe making some changes. And then inevitably they fall short. They let it all go. But what they think in their minds, and even what they'll tell people, is, well, I spent all that money on that conference. I spent all that money on that convention. Thus, it just didn't work out. Like I'm trying. At least I showed that I'm willing to spend a bunch of money to make myself feel better about the fact that I'm trying. But you still didn't apply any of the things that you learned. So we use it as this excuse tool sometimes when we spend a bunch of money on something. We're like, oh, if I buy this really fancy, I'll use myself as an example. If I have this microphone that, for those of you who've listened for the entirety of our episodes will know that this microphone is far better than the old one I was using. But as an example, let's say that when I first started the podcast, I said, I need the fanciest microphone they make, because if I spend a bunch of money on something like that, it's going to make the podcast, way better and blah, blah, blah. So I haven't even filmed anything yet, and I think that I need this special microphone to make it all better. And then I buy the microphone, and it's beautiful. It's great. Clearly, it works terrifically. And then I don't record anything with it. I might do a couple here and there, but it mostly just kind of sits. It's a coat rack. All of you who are especially married or live with your significant others understand that lots of very expensive things, like my lovely godmother's elliptical, turns into a coat rack. And so the point being is that I bought this big fancy thing, and with the intent of, oh, I'm going to use it. It's going to be great. It's going to change my life. And because I spent money on it, like, clearly I'm committed to this event. And then I don't do anything with it. I don't do any recordings. I don't make anything. So it becomes essentially useless. But I tell myself that because I spent this money on it, because I paid a high dollar for it, I at least tried. Clearly I'm interested. Clearly I want to do this. But then we don't follow through with it. We're not committed to it. And I want you guys to walk away with something today, and that is this. Just because you spent a bunch of money on something does not mean you are committed to doing it. At the end of the day, if you have something you want to do, you have a goal, you have a dream of doing something, all that matters is the work necessary to get to that point. I think it's great if people go to courses, they watch online videos, they take classes, they're consuming knowledge constantly. It's half of what I do all day long. However, all that matters is what's actionable when you have those things. I've actually worked with a couple of physical therapists specifically who have spent ungodly amounts of money on courses, and they're no better for it. They don't utilize it. They're not investing any more with it. They're really not applying it to the people that they work with. But because they decided to spend all this money, they think, oh, Well, at least I tried. Yeah, you did try, and you blew a few $1,000s, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day that you've spent a bunch of money. It matters if the actionable item occurs. I'll use my microphone example again. All that matters when it comes to what I do with you guys is that I sit down and record. Doesn't matter if it's with an iPhone, doesn't matter if it's with my Rode wireless incredible microphone, doesn't matter if it's my computer, doesn't matter if it's hieroglyphics. All that matters is that it's being done. It's being completed, that the work itself is completed and submitted, and I clock in and I clock out. Everything else is white noise. So although everything else can be helpful, those courses, those conventions, I think they're great. I really do think people should go to them. But just because you spent a bunch of money on it doesn't mean that you can then lack commitment afterwards to why you went there. People use spending money in these fancy conventions as procrastination tools, just to push, oh, well, I keep going to these courses because I'm really helping myself. Once I'm gone to this course, I'm going to start my business. Once I get here, I'm going to do this. Once I have a new microphone, I can start that podcast. Once I have a studio, I can, have a better podcast. That's when I'll start. No, that's not how it works. Start producing whatever you make now and do it better. And then you go to those things and you go, hey, I learned something. Apply it immediately. Just because you spent a bunch of money on it doesn't mean that you're actually committed to anything. All right, I'm done ranting. The moral of the story, as you guys should now understand, is that all that matters is producing. That's it. And we will use any tool at our expense to procrastinate. It's what we do. I'm too tired today. Oh, I don't have the right equipment. Oh, I don't have the right people skills. Oh, I'm not seasoned enough in my business to actually move up. Whatever it is, we will procrastinate in a million ways. We will find stuff. And one of the ways that we can do that is by going to these classes and courses or looking at all this stuff on the internet. And you're like, oh, I'm learning today. And then all of a sudden, no production has happened. You've made nothing. You've not contributed anything. You've just consumed. Eventually, you have to produce. You have to contribute. And so I want all of you listening to understand this. As men, we are called to work and to keep. I'm going to probably say this on every episode from now on because I really think it's going to be our mantra. When it comes to working, that means contributing. That does not mean consuming. All of these courses and stuff you go to, those people are producing and you're making them lots of money. You have to now go contribute with the knowledge that you just took in. It's not their job to make you go do things. And so I want you guys to walk away with that this morning. If you're taking in information, you're listening to podcasts, you're building all this wealth of knowledge, it does no good if it just sits in your head, no matter how expensive it was for you to take. And remember, you don't get your time back. So if you're spending all this time taking in this knowledge and you're not putting it anywhere, I don't really know what that knowledge is for. To make your head feel more full? I have no idea. Don't do that. Take what you know. Go learn. If you're going to spend a bunch of money on something, that's great. It doesn't mean it's more valuable than going on the internet and looking something up. But it's irrelevant. All that matters is if you take that information and you then go apply it, contribute to the world, make it a better place, and you go to work. All right? I lied. Now I'm done ranting. I love you all. God bless. Be strong. Have an incredible day. Let's get after it, boys.